The darkness seemed thicker than usual that night, swallowing the road whole as I drove through the desolate countryside. Rain pounded relentlessly against the windshield, creating an eerie rhythm that echoed the unease in my heart. I should have known better than to embark on this journey alone, but circumstances had left me no choice. As the minutes stretched into hours, fatigue began to weigh heavily on my eyelids. It was then that I saw him. A lone figure standing at the side of the road, his silhouette barely visible in the downpour. Instinctively, I slowed down, my curiosity outweighing my better judgment. The man approached my car, his hood pulled low over his face. His clothes were drenched, clinging to his form like a second skin. Without a word, he gestured for me to roll down the window. "Need a ride?" I called out, trying to mask the apprehension in my voice. He nodded, his expression hidden beneath the shadow of his hood. I unlocked the passenger door, and he climbed in without a word. The air inside the car felt charged with tension as I pulled back onto the road. "Where to?" I asked, trying to break the silence. "Just keep driving," he replied cryptically, his voice barely audible above the roar of the rain. I obliged, turning onto a narrow, winding road that seemed to lead nowhere. With each passing mile, my unease grew, fueled by the stranger's ominous presence. I stole glances at him whenever I could, but his face remained hidden in the darkness. Suddenly, he spoke, his voice slicing through the silence like a knife. "You shouldn't be out here alone." His words sent a chill down my spine, and I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer, instead staring out into the night with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I tried to focus on the road ahead, but a sense of dread had settled over me like a suffocating blanket. Minutes stretched into hours as we continued our journey into the unknown. My mind raced with questions, each more terrifying than the last. Who was this man? Where was he taking me? And why did I feel like I was being watched? Suddenly, the stranger spoke again, his voice low and menacing. "You can't leave. You're just like me now." I glanced at him in horror, but he was no longer there. In his place sat an empty shell, a hollow husk of what had once been human. I screamed, slamming on the brakes as the car skidded to a halt. But it was too late. I was no longer in control, trapped in a nightmare from which there was no escape. As the darkness closed in around me, I realized with a sinking heart that I had made a grave mistake, a detour that would haunt me for eternity. The second story was driving down a desolate stretch of highway, the only illumination coming from my headlights cutting through the thick darkness of the night. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, flanked by dense forests on either side, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I had been on the road for hours, my eyes heavy with exhaustion. The gas gauge hovered dangerously close to empty, and my phone had lost signal miles ago. I cursed myself for not filling up earlier, but now there was nothing to do but keep driving and hope to stumble upon a gas station soon. As I rounded a bend, a sign came into view, its letters barely visible in the dim light. "Gas station ahead, 10 miles. Relief flooded through me, and I pressed down on the accelerator, eager to reach my destination. But as the miles passed, the gas station never appeared. Panic began to claw at my chest as I realized I must have missed a turnoff in the darkness. I slowed down, scanning the roadside for any sign of civilization. That's when I saw it. A narrow dirt road branching off from the highway, almost hidden by overgrown vegetation. It seemed like my only option, so I took the turn, hoping it would lead me to salvation. The dirt road twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of the forest. The trees loomed ominously overhead, their shadows dancing in the glow of my headlights. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if something was lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. Suddenly, my headlights illuminated something in the middle of the road. A figure, hunched and twisted, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. My heart leaped into my throat as I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop just inches from the creature. I sat frozen in terror as it slowly turned its gaze towards me, its mouth stretching into a grotesque grin. Without a second thought, I threw the car into reverse, tires spinning as I backed away from the nightmarish apparition. But as I glanced in my rearview mirror, I realized the true horror of my situation. The road behind me had vanished, swallowed up by the darkness. I was trapped, alone in the heart of the forest, with whatever unholy creature now stalked me. With trembling hands, I fumbled for my phone, desperate for any sign of help. But as I powered it on, the screen remained blank, no signal to be found. Tears of frustration and fear pricked at my eyes as I realized the truth. There was no escape from the Desolate Detour, and as the Cree